patch 12.12 brought us a lot of interesting features and changes to the game. New maps, guns, clothes, AI behavior. This was a big patch for Tarkov, and for the most part it went off without a hitch, and the reception has been overwhelmingly positive. Of course, nothing's perfect, and some things have been added that have had their fair share of issues or people who would disagree with their implementation. One of those changes is being how recoil works across all AR platforms, and how in layman terms, it's gotten worse. So bad, in fact, that one would argue if it's even worth using those guns in the first place anymore. Full auto has always been pretty strong in this game, and the higher your PMC level and your loyalty level with the traders are, the better the full auto became, because the better attachments became more readily available for purchase. With this newest patch, and this is kind of a hot take, full auto might as well not even exist for the rifles. Not SMGs, because they're kind of king right now, alongside all the 308 DMRs, but AKs, M4s, RPKs, HKs, they all feel worse than they've ever felt. An example of this before is if you had max level traders, for the M4 specifically. If you use the MUR upper and the enhanced buffer tube for the M4, the rest of the gun was totally up to you. Suppressor or not, any attachment, you can make the gun look really crazy looking cool, and it would still function pretty fine on full auto. Now it feels like full auto has been reserved for only the absolute min-max build of that gun. And that shit's boring as fuck for me personally. Not to mention ridiculously expensive when other guns do it better for a fraction of the price. It pigeonholes people to using one gun, one way, dumping copious amounts of money into it to make it work. Barely. The Mutant is another example. That gun basically has one build, and again, to me personally, it's ugly as sin. The M4 isn't as ass ugly, but I've never been a personal fan of the quad rails, so that's more personal preference, but regardless, this is a situation of you have to dump a ton of money into the gun to make it actually totally usable with full auto, and it kind of sucks. Now, I get it. BSG wants to limit full auto so people just don't hold mouse 1 down and kill a 5-man. I totally understand. However, I feel as though it was maybe one single step too far. We've all wanted this, myself included, but it's just the way recoil feels in this game that upsets me so much. It's difficult to explain, but let me try. Burst fire is still just not viable, and while I don't have the actual, scientific numbers or a reason as to why it feels that way, my guess is it's the center speed of weapons in this game, and how slow it is across the board. And center speed is basically how fast a weapon counters the recoil while firing to settle down to its lowest point in automatic fire. Games like Call of Duty have this as well, and Modern Warfare 3 is actually a really good example with the weapon the G36C, for anyone that remembers. That gun's initial recoil was very high. However, the gun had the fastest center speed out of all the assault rifles, so firing in short bursts was ideal. The gun became deadly from mid to long range because the recoil would begin resetting during fire very quickly. Now in Tarkov, recoil doesn't behave like that, and again, I don't have the science to figure out what it actually does. But guns just take a long time to settle down into their final recoil pattern. So long that sometimes you're out of ammo in a 30-round mag by the time they do. Combine that with some guns having atrocious view kick when they're fired, and you have a system that's so rough on full auto, one questions why you would have it in there nowadays. I know I'm being a little dramatic, but I've always kind of scratched my head at why burst fire is so bad in Tarkov. Every other shooter has kind of taught us that burst fire is the happy medium between single shot tapping and full auto spraying. I started writing this like February 14th at like 1 o'clock, but I pushed it aside for other ideas that I have and currently have. But seeing that this is starting to make the rounds on the subreddit and other places like YouTube and stuff, I figured it should take more priority to at least get my thoughts out. Again, I don't have the data, I don't test this stuff, I don't know how, and it's more or less bro science to just take my word at face value. And there's much more reputable sources out there if you're actually looking for the science. There's a ton of places and resources and people you can go to if you want to figure this stuff out. But the fact of the matter is that these rifles feel bad, like really bad. And it would be nice to have them reined in somewhat, especially 5.56. It's probably the most egregious out of all the calibers right now, and the one that people have the most issues with. And that sentiment seems to be resonating with others who play the game and have been expressing their disdain for how these guns feel right now. My hope is that some tangible happy medium is met somewhere. I don't know how you would go to make these guns feel better and to shoot across the board while not making them laser beams again. I don't know how BSG is going to do it. I don't really have the answer, but I just hope BSG can figure something out soon rather than later, because these guns just feel so bad right now, and it doesn't feel like they should be that way. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch this video, and I hope to see you in future ones.